question. Do you know stuff about kings and queens? What is a king supposed to sit on? A throne. What's a king supposed to wear?
A king's crown.
A crown? Okay. Kings are supposed to sit on thrones. They're supposed to wear crowns, and they're supposed to have robes and capes and stuff. Now, when we look around the church building, we see that at this funny time of year, we're trying to do a lot of stuff. We know Thanksgiving is coming up this week, and then we're going to have a period of time called Advent. That's when we're getting ready to see Jesus all the ways he comes to us, and our prayers and our hopes and our dreams. Certainly in the future when he keeps us safe. Certainly also when we remember the past when he was born. Now when Jesus was born, and today we say that Christ is the king. So let's say when Jesus the king was born, did he get to sit on a throne?
He was in a shed in a little hay.
In a hay manger where animals eat. Right? So instead of a throne, they put him in a little wooden box filled with food for animals. That's not very much of a throne. Did he get to wear a crown on his head?
No, but
Swaddling cloths, they say. He was all swaddled up, so no robes, but he got to be all swaddled up. So he was in the animal food bin. He was wrapped up in like raggy old blankets to keep him warm and swaddled. I'm sure Mary made sure they were clean, but they weren't like fancy capes. And do you know what was poking in his poor little head? Straw. Did you ever go for like a hay ride and the hay and the straw gets in your clothes and it's itchy? It's not very kingly to put a baby wrapped in blankets in the straw in that little old wooden box. But guess what? That was more comfortable than some other places Jesus was in his life. Do you know anywhere else that Jesus, after he was grown up, like, yeah, in our story from the Bible today, in the gospel, we heard about Jesus on the cross. So instead of a wooden manger,
confronted by mobs.
So he was on a big wooden cross. He was confronted by mobs. Mobs are like crowds of people. And yeah, they can get mad really fast. And the mobs were making fun of him. They were saying things like, hey, if you're a king, what are you doing on a cross? You should be on a throne, not a cross. You should have a crown. Uh-oh. Did Jesus get to wear a crown when he was on the...
It was a crown of thorns.
He had a crown of thorns poking in his head like the straw when he was a baby, except the thorns
In his skull.
poking into his skull. Did he get to wear any fancy robes, do you think, when he was on the cross?
No, he had.
They took his clothes away. We heard that in the Bible. They took away his clothes and they tried to figure out, hey, you can take some clothes, you can take some clothes, you can take some clothes, you can take some clothes. Everybody got clothes except Jesus. So this is a funny kind of king that we have. Because when he was a baby, he was wrapped in blankets in the straw in the manger.
That's better than on a cross with a crown of thorns.
That is better than on a cross with a crown of thorns. So that's what he had to grow up to. Like when people ask you what you want to be when you grow up, do you ever say, I want to get hurt when I'm a grown up?
No. I won't.
If we turned and asked all of our friends here, what do you want to be when you grow up? I bet a lot of people would have a lot of dreams, but nobody wants to get hurt. Nobody wants to be made fun of. Nobody wants the mobs to come and yell at us and laugh at us. So poor Jesus, what kind of a king would let that happen? I got to think about it. So I made a picture before you got here. So I want to show you my picture, and you know exactly what it is. What shape is that?
A cross.
And what does it say?
Jesus.
Jesus. I'm not a really good drawer of people, so instead of drawing Jesus, I put his name on the cross. So that's Jesus on the cross. And up top there's some letters. What do those letters say? I. N. I-N-R-I. And that stands for, back where Jesus lived, when he got put on the cross, they didn't speak our language. It looks like INRI, but it's really, in Latin, it's a way it stands for Jesus of Nazareth, Rex of the Jews. Rex, like Tyrannosaurus Rex. Do you know what Rex means in Latin? Rex means king. So Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. Like Tyrannosaurus Rex is like the king lizard dinosaur. But Jesus is not a dinosaur.
Yeah. Or a lizard.
Or a lizard. I know true things about Jesus. If you were going to talk about who Jesus is in your life, what does Jesus want for you? Does he want you to be strong?
Yeah.
Strong muscles in your bodies? Does he want you to have good, clear thinking brains?
Yeah.
What about your loving hearts?
Yes.
Does Jesus want all of you to be filled with strong bodies, thinking brains, and loving hearts? Yes. And Jesus prays for us too. When Jesus was on the cross, he prayed for every one of us. He prayed for the people who lived back then. He prayed for us who live now. He prayed for pastors in their robes. He prayed for youth in their schools. He prayed for grown-ups at their jobs. He prayed for mature people in retirement to whom we all look for hope. A little less than to Jesus, but still. Jesus prayed for us to have forgiveness. Do you know what he said? He gave that prayer today on the cross. He said, Father, he's talking to our God.
Father, forgive us.
Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing. Like when we're babies and we're born, like Jesus in the manger, did he even know how to feed himself?
Yeah.
No. He couldn't walk. He didn't know how to talk yet. But he already had a family full of love, and he had all of God's love to share. He didn't know what he was doing, but he knew he would grow and learn. And when he looked at his sisters and brothers like us, he knows that we don't know everything. You go to school so that you can learn things, but all the people out here, no matter how old we are, no matter how long we went to school, no matter how good we are at our jobs, can I tell you guys a secret? Everyone in here is making up their life every day. We're just trying to figure it out all the time. We listen for God's voice in our thinking brains. We listen for God's love in our feeling hearts. We look for God's strength in our bodies. But we don't know what we're doing. We're trying to live. We're trying to love. We're trying to follow Jesus everywhere he goes. Except that's a problem. I don't want to follow Jesus everywhere he goes sometimes. Do you know why? One of the places he goes is the cross. And it looks like it hurts him there. And it looks like people are sad.
I would never go.
I don't really think Jesus wanted to go there either. But he loved us enough that when the mob got angry, did Jesus run away and hide? No.
And he did that so we could live. Yeah.
He did that so we can live, and because Jesus has this awesome name that we learn at Christmas, that he's Emmanuel, and that means God's with us. Could he be with us if he ran away from us? Even if we're angry mobs, he has to be with us.
And he let them crucify him because if he didn't do that, we know who he had.
He let them crucify him because he wasn't going to run away ever.
let us go to hell.
Yep, he wanted to give us all hope. But when I look at the cross, I have to tell you something. I'm not really happy seeing Jesus on the cross. If I could get rid of the cross, in fact, I want to destroy the cross. I'm going to do it. I have a marker, and I don't want to see this cross hurting Jesus anymore. So I crossed it out. Did I get rid of it? Is he safe now?
No.
Well, no. Then I'm not done. I can do something else. If it didn't work, I am going to cut this. Jesus on the cross. I don't want to see Jesus getting hurt on the cross. I want him to be safe. I want him to save himself. I want him to keep us safe. Oh my gosh. You think this is weird? Guess what? Sometimes pastors are weird. I don't.
He's still there.
No, I ruined it. The cross, did I fix it?
No. You never can. Because it's in the past.
Then I can turn it into something else. If I don't want Jesus on the cross, I'm going to figure out a way. I'll turn it into something else. I'll turn it into a crown. Can that be a crown for Jesus instead of thorns? I want him to have a crown. I want Jesus to be safe. I want Jesus to keep us safe. I want him to save himself and us. Just like that guy on the cross said. Except, that reminds me, I still have a big chunk of the cross, and who's on it?
Why don't you just make another cross?
What's on it? Us. We follow Jesus where he goes. And even if we try to get Jesus off the cross,
It wouldn't work.
our lives still, do we fall down and get hurt? Do our feelings get hurt? Do our memories hurt sometimes? Do our good plans turn into problems and we realize that sometimes we hurt people's feelings on accident? Sometimes do we get angry and hurt people's feelings on purpose? I do that sometimes.
What?
And it doesn't make me feel good. And that feels to me like I'm still hanging out with Jesus on the cross. But the same way Jesus said, I'll have a kingdom that's different and I'll make something different. Do you know Jesus takes us? And Jesus says, I'm not going to leave you on that cross. I remember you. You're my family. And if I am the king of love, then you are my princes and princesses of love.
I am a prince.
You're a prince of love. Guess what? Everyone here is a prince and a princess of love. Everyone here gets to be part of God's story where Jesus says, I don't leave you on the cross. The same thing you see in me that makes me the king of love, I take that and give it to you so that you can be part of the story. And then when Jesus comes all together, well, you know what? It looks like it makes a person. It looks like, oh, it's just the right size that we could fit our communion in there. We could fit God's whole life in this story where Jesus comes to be our king and to give us life. And so I'm going to do that today. The crown that Jesus has, the crown that God shares in love for us, we can put it right up here. And the cross that they thought was going to hurt us can turn into a big tower of light, like a candle burning bright, for us to see.
It's like a big candle.
Looks like a big candle. And guess what I'm thinking? That manger, was it a good throne?
It was perfect for him, though.
Was the cross a good throne?
No.
But when Jesus takes his communion and puts it in our hearts, can we be a throne for him? Will you do that as his princes and princesses? Will you do that as his princes and princesses? Because this one who loves us needs a different love to be in this world. So here we are, family, at our Thanksgiving table, getting ready for our Advent, looking forward to the child who will be born. And when we find him born in us, we meet even the glory that takes that old cross and gets rid of it. And I thank you so much for sharing that story with me today. I'm going to ask, will you take that love? Will you go tell your families that they're princes and princesses of love in God's family? Don't let them forget it. And when somebody says when they grow up they're going to be the king and the queen and the prince and the princess in God's family, absolutely true. Okay? Go let your family know that.